And then the other half of you, my dear, is you have mediumship and spiritual healing.
Yes.
So first things first, when did you realize you had these gifts?
Yeah. I would say childhood.
You started as a child.
Yeah.
What was it like for you then?
Yeah. So typically, I also help spiritual children, kind of who are going through what I went through. So typically children ages 2 to 3 can verbalize. Babies can play with ghosts and energies, right?
Yeah.
But 2 to 3 can say grandma, in the corner. And so what's happening though in their brains is under the age of 7, they're in the theta state. And so because usually around 3rd grade, when they're 7, they're learning what's real and fake, right? Or what's good and bad. They have that ability to discern in their brains. So as a psychic, I'm going into the alpha brain waves, which is allowing me to tap into our intuition, which we all have. So it's just a muscle and a skill. So, but for others or children like myself, I was seeing grandpa. I was being pushed by imaginary friends on the swings and that old man and that nobody saw. Yeah. So I was being literally touched, and pushed.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that's interesting because in having listened to other podcasts, learning about other folks with similar types of gifts, I've heard a lot that there's many different senses. So some people only see. Some people, it's more of they smell something like a perfume or a tea bag, and they can sense in different ways.
Yeah.
For you, it's visual and physical.
Yes.
So multiple senses.
Yes.
And I know this is going to sound a little silly, but I think that would be really neat for everyone to kind of hear about if you're comfortable talking about it is, there's I see dead people. There's That's So Raven with her premonitions. There's so much on TV in the media that I think has really taken away from or maybe made light of or, just twisted what this really is. Yeah. And I think that's why it's so hard for some people to believe it because it just seems so far-fetched or it's so comical, Right. So when you say you see something, did it look like you and me sitting here on the couch today? Would it be a blurred figure, a shadow? What is it when you say you see something? You don't stop and freeze dead in your tracks and, that's so Raven, your eyes look like a deer in headlights.
Yeah. So, so all the senses are called clairs. So clairvoyance, clairsentience. Clairaudience. I definitely know I have some clairaudience because that's when your ears will ring. So you're tuning into that frequency. And so it's a full body kind of experience. And so as an empath, as a sentient, like you're saying, I can feel when the cold changes, right? So I guess when I was a child, it would be shadows and energy. I slept with my mom every night, just, and then it became a behavioral pattern of whenever I felt something, it was fear-based. So that's also why I'm helping these children is because it is scary, right? Yeah. And then what's happening to the parents is it's, behaviors, yes or no. And so what happens in that theta state is if mom says it was just the wind, it's common for kids to lose their beautiful gifts. So, yeah. But to answer your question, I recently went to Savannah, Georgia with my boyfriend and we were on a ghost tour and I was I kind of want to see it, as I'm walking around because the whole place is a graveyard, but it really is just in your third eye. It's really for me, it's in my, when I'm tuning in, when I'm rising to that vibration, I can see it, feel it, and then I get, so then the claircognizance is knowing. So then I'll be French, slavery, I'll get information.
Wow.
Yeah. But there are pure psychic mediums who really just see in the corner.
Wow.
So
it can go ways. Either ways, but that's your experience.
Yeah, that's the way I do it. I'm oh, okay. So it's in my my frequency.
Interesting.
Which I think I kind of prefer, especially as a psychic child. I don't want to be seeing it.
Yeah.
So I'm I have more control, right?
Yeah. So you know, you alluded to parents sometimes. I'm right now watching the show Maggie. I don't know if you've ever watched it. I think it's on Hulu. But I just came to this episode where she's a psychic and she
has like a shop.
A little shop. She's so cute. I know. And this like little high school girl comes in and says she's you know, having these visions and being able to get these, you know, pick up on these different things happening. But her mom, you know, keeps dismissing her, and she's mentoring someone who's young and letting her, you know, really lean into this. For you, how did you decide this is something that you did want to continue on with and really wanted to be able to enhance and hone in on, or did you have a mentor for yourself back then?
So my parents really got the brunt of it because I was, you know, seeing Grammy and waking up. And so I think, so no, not young, but when I was 14, my mom did take me to a psychic.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah. And she, you know, caught on, but now she's like, I wish I knew earlier, you know, but that was kind of the origin story is like, I went to the psychic and she was like, you're more psychic than me.
Wow.
And I was like 14. She thought I was 17. And so for this like big psychic in Atlanta, Georgia, that was like famous to say that, I was like, okay. So I, you know, it validated me, it validated my mom. And then from there I was like, wow, so this is just affirming that I am this and I'm an old soul and all the things.
Yeah. And so now for you, is it more often than not you walk into a room and you instantly, you know, feel something, or you could just be sitting on your couch and all of a sudden it appears like a message is coming through, or is it more needing to be provoked, like having a session with somebody one-on-one? I think of, you know, the Long Island medium. She just walks in the grocery store and she has to pull people aside to be like, I just need to tell you this. Do you get that overwhelming sense more often than not, or is it something that you work on, you know, really independently or individualized one-on-one with someone?
Because I can control it, and that's in quotes, I do it. So I really call it opening up is what I would say. So for her, it seems like she's always on. Yeah. You know, and that's not necessarily good energetic hygiene, right? Because if she's open, then any and everything can come in.
Good point.
You know, shout out to her. But that's just like, you know, for me to, especially living in Boston on the train and stuff, I mean, as an empath, which many of us are, you know, feeling the anger of the person next to you is enough. And so for my psychic gifts to be fully turned on is a lot. But like when I go to Salem or Savannah, or even in a closed space, I can see people's auras. I can see, like, you know, the deceased kind of behind them, around them. So it does happen.
Okay.
Yeah. But if it is icky, that is strong.
Okay. Yeah. So it is there is something we said about the fact that, you know, it's not all of a sudden good too either, right? So you really choose to discern which energy you like to invite in or engage with. Yeah. And then the other thing that I think is helpful to clarify for people is really the difference between being a medium versus having that psychic intuition. I think with the medium, you know, you're actually engaging, like we're talking about, with a certain spirit or multiple spirits, and it's more of the receiving of messages, where the, you know, the intuition is maybe general things that we're foreshadowing. What is in your terms the difference between the two?
Yeah. So we'll start with medium. Medium is seeing people that have passed. People, places, and things, really, you know. It can be dogs, it can be anything on the other side, in that dimension, in that realm. And then some mediums can see beyond and get more energy and information. But not all mediums would call themselves psychic, right? So that's why I say both for mine, because I am, like what you're saying about being psychic, I can prophesize. Yeah. So what I'm doing is I'm tuning into your timeline, or the timeline you're asking, and, you know, getting hits from that. But also psychic can mean just intuitive, just looking at a picture. I mean, there's so many ways people can be psychic. So mediumship is the deceased, you know, we could say that. And then psychic is everything else.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. So now my big question is, how do these, I say two, meaning spiritual in the more traditional science, not to be confused with psychic and mediumship being two, but these two worlds, how do they work together, and how do you utilize both in your sessions with clients?
Yeah, so they come in as they want to. Usually the mediumship comes first, just because I think my own skills and my team, the beings, the loved ones who help me tune in, who are around me, I think they show me. So there's a term called evidential mediumship. So, like when I connect with you, I'm like yellow ribbon and you're like, oh yeah, my grandmother wore it, right. Or something. And so that for me is to confirm that I am connected to you and with you, and then also your team. And then, the mediumship part is grandma could have a message for you that I may or may not have gotten psychically, or that she wanted to deliver.
Yeah.
So that's how I deliver. And then I go into, I'm feeling this chakra, or I'm feeling this part of you, or, whoever's connected to you in your physical presence, is tuning in. That's more psychic.
Right. So it kind of almost can better fill in the gaps or help you better understand maybe what we're going through. If you were just to look at us like face value as a human being and in this lifetime, right, on Earth, like you get that extra added information to be able to put the pieces together a little bit.
Yeah.
Very cool. Do you have clients who prefer you only do traditional science, or you only do the spiritual work? Or do most people allow, in and out of both in their sessions with you?
Yeah. So definitely I market like psychotherapy is the psychotherapy, especially with insurance. So, that's traditional.
Right.
And I always like to ask, like you said, non-traditional, like there is more, I'll use the term holistic, right? So like, are you wanting to do a meditation? Is that something you're wanting to do? And they'll say, sure. And it's inner child work. But then I'll always ask, right?
Yeah.
But then the life coaching piece, so the multidimensional life coaching is the encompassing of everything else, is all of that into one. And that's kind of why I've pivoted to the life coaching space, is because, like you said, using my education, using my certs, all the stuff, and then my gifts to deliver to, these awesome women and these clients, like everything, like a multidimensional, all-encompassing approach.
One-stop shop, baby.
Yeah, like literally, right.